For today's critical thought, we're back on the topic of GUI and UI UX design. Now, in a previous video I recorded, which may go before or after this one, I don't know yet, I talked about reflex-driven games. Platformers, shooters, anything that is more hands-on. But I left it open to talk more about abstracted and strategic-based games. And lo and behold, that's going to be our topic today. Why even if your game is completely turn-based, you still need to be mindful of the GUI and the UI UX of it. Good UI UX in any game is paramount. It's always the major point of these videos. But as I've said, there's a difference in philosophy and approach when we're talking about a reflex-driven game like a shooter like Doom versus a game like Civilization, Stellaris, XCOM, and anything else. And it's very easy to fall into this trap of, well, if XCOM's UI is like this, and I'm building a tactical strategy game, let me just copy XCOM one for one. Or, who cares about focusing on a GUI? The game is turn-based. Someone can just take all the time in the world and look at every single little icon on screen. And no, that's not how it works, and that's not how you want your game to behave when it comes to good GUI design. I'll talk more about why in the next few minutes. Now, when we talk about abstracted-based design or any kind of GUI design in a game, the first and foremost thing you have to focus on is the main screen. The main screen GUI is the element the person's going to be looking at the most. If it's a platformer, it's going to be the screen that shows health, minimap, score that's needed. If it's a shooter, we want health, ammo, special moves, stuff like that. But again, there is no one-size-fits-all approach because every game's design is differently. If we're talking about a shooter like Doom Eternal versus a shooter like Ultra Kill, they're both shooters, they both feature guns, but they both have very different information that's required by the player. And this is what you need to be looking at when it comes to the main screen, especially of a strategy or abstracted-based game. What information does the player need at all times? And again, that is all the time. If this is a civilization management style game, I need to know, well, how much money does my civilization have? Are my people happy? Where are my units? What's being built this turn? If this is a kind of tactical RPG, I need to know how many actions my characters have left. What powers are available? What's on cooldown? Are my characters safe? Where is the enemy? And again, it gets very complicated for obvious reasons. And the first major lesson that you have to understand about building your main screen GUI is that you do not want the player to have to leave the main screen for any reason. Anytime someone is switching to another screen or looking something up online, do not build your game under the guise of having someone to have to flip over to a web browser to look up information. That is a huge no-no today. But anytime the player is not staring at their main screen, a warning light should be going off in your head. Because this means that there's information that the player needs or they think they need, and the game is not telling them. And this can add up in a big way. And this, again, is another huge point about GUI and UI UX design about this. The issues that we are talking about in a lot of cases when it comes to GUI design, these are elements that, in the span of like an immediate action, could be a second, half a second, a quarter of a second of additional time in your game. So you may be thinking, well, who cares? Who cares if the player needs to go to the inventory screen to check how much ammo they have instead of just looking on the main screen? It takes a quarter of a second, maybe half a second. But you see, issues with the GUI and the UX like this, they will be happening constantly. And when I say constantly, it could be 10 times a minute, maybe 20 times over the span of 5 minutes. And all these little issues, they always add up. And while the player may not be thinking about it consciously, they will be feeling that there's something not right about your game, that it doesn't feel good to play your game. And bad UX is not something that gets fixed over time. You can't introduce upgrades to make your UI UX better. There's a fun thought. Here's a new monetization model. Your game starts with the color palette neon pink and neon yellow, and they're alternating every second. And you need to spend $4.99 in order to be able to adjust color palettes, and then an additional $6.99 to turn off alternating colors. That's a fun one. Let me know if any developers want to steal that idea for their game. When people get annoyed or frustrated about the UX of a game, these are the very death by 1,000 cuts reasons why someone's going to leave your game. And as a designer, this is the kind of stuff that you do not want. Because it doesn't matter how original, dynamic, any other adjective you can imagine, your shooter, RPG, strategy, visual novel, dating sim, open world, platformer, bullet hell is. If it's frustrating to play, if the person is annoyed the second they try to start your game, you have lost them forever. Now, again, when we talk about this kind of stuff, there will be people who say, well, who cares? Who cares that it's annoying to have to sort your inventory? Or if your game doesn't even feature inventory sorting, just get good at picking up items. And this is, again, why it's very frustrating to talk about UI UX work when it comes to the hardcore fans. These are the people who have internalized every single issue with your game as just par for the course. It's like the person who holds onto a car for, years and years, saying it's their baby, even though the steering wheel comes out of the dashboard when you try and turn it, and the air conditioner doesn't work. And when you honk the horn, a boxing glove comes out and punches you in the chest. It's all just part of the car, so who cares about it? But you see, again, when we talk about UI UX work like this, it does matter. And we've stopped before when we just focusing on the main screen. But there's other things you have to pay attention to when building the UI UX of your title. And that is any additional systems that relate to it. So this could be, again, like a tech tree for research in a strategy game. Managing troops, managing equipment, managing subsystems. Maybe your game features a domino perk tree that when you match dominoes of corresponding dice or dots or numbers, it gives your characters boosts based on the color of the domino and the orientation of it. When you have systems that the player is going to be interacting with constantly, that are integral to the core gameplay loop of your game, you have to make sure that they are seamless, that they are enjoyable, that they're not frustrating to play. Here's a very important point for all you watching this. There's a very simple tell that a lot of people, including yours truly, have used to determine if a developer has only worked on mobile games or their game that they are releasing on PC was ported to mobile very quickly. Do you know what that tell is? The answer is that your game doesn't feature any hotkeys or shortcuts. It is entirely mouse-driven. This is a very big no-no, especially for any kind of strategy or management game. Remember, shortcuts and hotkeys, their purpose is to make it quicker and more intuitive to go through the UI or the GUI of your game. This is the kind of stuff that, again, you need to be focusing on, especially if it's, again, a system that the player is going to be using constantly throughout your game. So let me tell you about something that really annoys me. This is like nails scratching on a chalkboard for me, and you should be looking as nervous as this guy as I'm saying this if it's in your game. So this is a game where you have to manage equipment and items. So you have on one side of the screen like the UI of your character, what gear they're wearing and all that, and you have items over here. And you can't just double click on an item and move it from there to there. No, you have to click on the slot over there to then pull up the right thing. Then you have to click on each and every item to see how it relates. And then instead of just clicking on the item, you have to drag it all the way over here. Even if it only fits in one slot, it doesn't matter. So you have to keep switching between left and right, right and left, each and every time. When you could just double click on the item and let it auto equip, or hit spacebar to unequip. And if your game does this, then you better change it or I will haunt your nightmares like Freddy Krueger. In fact, at some point I should just do one of these GUI critical thoughts, just wearing a Freddy Krueger costume and see if anyone notices. These kinds of issues are very frustrating to deal with, and more importantly, again, they upset the quality of your game. Managing your inventory and equipment, stuff like that, may not even matter once you're in the main game and you're managing troops or shooting, jumping, rocket shooting, jump shotgunning, whatever. But if it's annoying to get to that point each and every time someone wants to play your game, it is going to take its toll on them. And again, this is the kind of stuff that frustrates people because it never goes away unless you actively fix it or update it through patch notes or whatever. This is a problem that's going to be in your game from the first minute to the 100th minute to the 500th hour to the 3rd year of playing your game. This is going to be a problem. And when we look at GUI design like this, that actually takes me to another important point. Good GUI and UI UX design stops or mitigates problems before they start. As a designer, you should be paying attention to any issues that can come up with the play of your game. And if you can't directly fix it by completely altering your GUI, completely changing your UI, then you need to have something in place to stop someone from making a mistake. So here's a pop quiz for everyone watching this. Let me know what mysterious answer to this question. How do you figure out if people are having a problem with your game or understanding a specific part of it? Like, I think you have to test gameplay, test play, something like that. I mean, what kind of imaginary, completely out there concept am I thinking of? Let me know in the comments down below. And you see, this actually takes me to another big point, because I know a few of you are probably thinking this right now. If someone makes a mistake in your game, makes a mistake because of the GUI or the UI of it, is that funny? Are they going to think that it's an oopsie daisy? Oh no, I equipped a gun, but the game didn't show me that I have the right ammo for it, so now I'm in combat and my gun's completely empty. Because I didn't notice that the gun is over here, but the actual ammo supply is down there. So it must be funnier. The consumer must be thinking that it's hilarious that they missed that information. No, let me tell you what they're thinking. This game is trash, this GUI is horrible, uninstall and refund. Because here is a magical little note for all of you watching this. When it comes to GUI design, even if the player is the one at fault, it's still your fault that it happened. All GUI design problems are the failure of the designer. There's another happy, fun lesson for today. And again, there are people who, if they know that there is an issue, if they know that there's a problem, that people are making the same mistake over and over again, you have to put something in place. Here's a good example of what I mean. So we are playing the game Goblin Stone, and this is the kind of strategy RPG where you're managing goblins and fighting and trying to keep them alive and all that. So a big part of the game is matching equipment to the right class. If you have a raider, you want to have a raider weapon on them. If you have a shaman, you want a shaman weapon. So I was mixing characters in and out of my party, and I went to hit start the mission. And then a pop-up came up saying, hey, You have a character on your team that is missing equipment that you have. Are you sure you want to go into battle unarmed? And lo and behold, I forgot to equip a weapon to that character. So again, this is a really good point. I am sure when they were doing playtesting and user feedback, people were making that mistake. When you're managing 6 different characters or 6 different classes with all your gear, it's very easy to forget to make sure everyone has the right weapon on. So by doing this, they are stopping a problem before it happens. And like I said, if there is something that is instrumental to playing in your game, if there is an issue that it is because the player is not paying attention to the UI, or the GUI is just not showing it properly, or it's in the weird spot, have a secondary warning, have an airbag in your GUI to make sure that people don't make that mistake. Because if they make that mistake, and again, it's because your GUI didn't properly inform them or the information wasn't readily available, they're blaming you, they're blaming your game, and they are never going to play it ever again. Now, to wrap things up for today, why do I harp on these issues so much when it comes to UI UX? You see, the problem is very simple. What we talked about over the last 16 or so minutes when this is all edited down, this is not Grandmaster design. This is not something that takes or should take decades and years and dozens of games, and you should be a game design black belt in order to do good UI UX work. This is step 1. This is step -1. Because everything else in your game is built off of your GUI and your UI and UX. If this stuff is bad, if this is not working right, nothing else that you do is going to matter. This is how you churn lots and lots of people off of a great game. Because like I said, if they're frustrated by how it feels to jump, or how it feels to equip a sword, or a pair of pants, or maybe your game features a color coding system that you have to make sure you wear the green shirt to the green sock to get the green bonus, but then there's double bonus mastery if you would wear an orange beanie and a red wristband at the same time, and the game is not giving you all that information, people are going to become frustrated. And again, good GUI design informs the player as to their choices. It doesn't make the choice for them. Unless people want that approachability option. Because someone will probably say, well, if I tell the player to wear, I don't know, jorts to get a bonus, and they're just going to assume that's how you play it. But if jorts give you a super jump bonus for whatever reason, and the game doesn't explicitly tell you, the player needs to be informed of this information so that they can make wise and obviously informed decisions. So here's one final point for today. Again, why this stuff is very important to me. There is a subset of people on Twitch and YouTube and social media, I know that not a lot of them, and they scream and rage about all kinds of things, like, oh, there's pronouns in this game. This game doesn't feature a white male, so it's woke and evil. And they scream and they rant and they rave about it. Well, you see, for me, I scream and rave when there's GUI issues in your game. When your game doesn't have volume sliders. When your game has lack of hotkeys, or you hide the hotkey so the player doesn't realize that there's shortcuts to make their life easier. So make sure that you do this right, because you know what? I'm a very busy person. I can't be hopping into your nightmares every single night because you make these mistakes and try to kill you. Or help you, or I don't know, one or the other. I'll figure out at the time. That's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to do the YouTubing stuff people tell you to do. If you're interested in more of my thoughts on design, check out my books wherever they are sold. Visit our Discord and Patreon, and come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where you some of the art and science of games.